Warm greetings to all the attendees who have joined us on our session of navigating the cloud with the cloud pilot. Tonight, we have with us Mr. Udesh Udayakumar, GCP DevOps engineer and Google Cloud innovator. He has got his foot strong in the field of cloud computing and got certified in 9 out of 11 GCP certifications so far in a very short time. From branding himself as a cloud pilot to a lot more towards navigating in the field of cloud computing, we sure have a lot of queries to ask him and moreover listen to him of his journey, which is onwards and upwards. On behalf of GDSC MITS, GDSC TOCH, and GDSC MEC, I cordially invite him as the esteemed speaker for our session. Before we begin our session, I also request our attendees to feel free to text your queries or any sort of questions in the Q&A. And for people who face any net issue, please note we are also YouTube streaming this session, so you can also check with that. So with that being said, moving to Udesh, and we're all excited for the session. Thank you.
Hello. Hey guys. Okay, are you able to hear me? Okay, cool. So let's make this as much interactive as possible. So I am kind of an interactive guy, and I always like to interact with everybody, whoever the audience is. And my main intention is to help you understand everything that you need to know. Plus, today I'll also help you with what you need to know to begin a journey with cloud computing and how to establish a career in the cloud computing domain. So, bit about myself. I am a 2021 graduate, Udesh Udayakumar. I graduated from Mother Institute of Technology and Science. So, I had a unconventional path which I traveled during the last 2 years. So by 2020, by mid 2020, during the lockdowns, I kind of started with cloud. And since then, I was kind of having a positive outlook towards the entire domain of cloud computing because I did a market research on that particular domain because market research is basically the foundations of everything. So if you want to see what's the scope, you have to do some research on what domains you need. For example, if you say data science is going to be a trending topic, then it's said based on a few results or conclusions done based out of a few market research. So this market research is really important, and that was something which I did in my final year of college. So if anybody was to ask me what is cloud before June 2020, I would have probably said nothing because I didn't really know. What I've heard was, there is cloud computing, cloud technology, but I didn't really know what it was. And I was entering my final year at college at that point of time. I did some DSA, I did some coding back then, but I was not really interested. I wanted to do something different. I didn't really want to just sit down and code. So I wanted to have a different path. So I started learning it, and I started it the very hard way itself. I started with Google Cloud. So Google Cloud is one of the hardest cloud providers to learn. AWS being the easiest. I'm not saying AWS is the best, but AWS is very easy comparatively to learn compared to Google Cloud. So I took it the hard way, and I did a lot of mistakes. So I started with learning Google Cloud instead of learning the foundations of cloud computing. So that was the biggest mistake and the first mistake which I did. And that's also the same thing which I recommend everybody to avoid. Start with the basics of cloud computing, and then move into a cloud. So I write blogs on Medium. So pilottodesh.medium.com is my handle on Medium, and I have a YouTube channel named The Cloud Pilot, where I post GCP tutorials, certification study guides, and all of the stuff, and also some guidance on how to build a career on a particular domain by bringing in experts around that domain. So I host a podcast, the Cloud Pilot podcast, which is also available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and all other stuff. And apart from that, I currently work for a Google Cloud's premier partner, and I'm working as a GCP DevOps engineer. So I kind of tackle Google Cloud and DevOps stuff at company, and it's been really amazing to work because our work culture is equal to Google's work culture. So there is nothing much different than me working in Google. So it's basically like I'm associated with Google in all ways. It's just the company's name. That's the only. I think that's the only difference I have with Googlers. So that's what I am, and then I kind of inclined towards mentoring people. I started to build my expertise. So I took certifications. I currently have 9 certifications on GCP, and the total number of GCP certifications is just 11. So I just have 2 left, which I'm planning to take soon. But I've kind of kept myself cool not to finish it right now. But and I'm also certified on Kubernetes, and I'm also the youngest person in the world to to be fully certified on Kubernetes. So yeah, so on certification perspective, I'm kind of rich, and also I hope I'm rich in knowledge, which I'm happy to share with everybody. And I've mentored a few people. I think I've mentored around 15 or so people, and I think at least 10 people have been placed, not placed, they found their job in cloud, and on different clouds, of course. And I think out of that 15 or 10 plus students that I've mentored, not just students but also professionals, have been mentoring them, and a lot of them were able to make career switches, and students again mentoring them. 10 plus students landed their fresh out of college graduate job as a cloud engineer. uh, and then I'm still continuing to do that, and I am happy to do it for you as well if you want. So yeah, that's pretty much about me in a nutshell. I'm a blogger. I write, I speak, and I am a course instructor. My course is also on Udemy, on Google Cloud, of course. And I'm kind of literally a Google guy. And today I'm here to help you with anything and everything that you need to know, learn, and all those things around cloud computing. So yeah, that's pretty much about me. Maybe I'll just currently take some time, open up for you to ask me any questions if you have before we start out. Feel free to ask me anything. I'll be happy to answer. Okay, what was your motivation towards the cloud journey? Good question. In fact, it's one of the hardest questions I have answered. So my it wasn't really I was not like when I was in college, I was kind of not having any directions towards moving into cloud, because it just came one day, and I just picked it up, felt what it is, and I just took it off. So that's pretty much about the motivation in a nutshell. But again, the main thing was when I started to do the research, when I tried to do the background research, what I saw was, a lot of companies are moving into the cloud, and it will continue to do so. And at that point of time, even now, we don't have big experts on Google Cloud. So that's a huge gap in the industry, that that brings up a lot of opportunities for us to expand our potential, utilize it to the maximum, and showcase ourselves. So learning Google Cloud was the right choice which I picked. And it was not like was determined that I would learn cloud. No, not at all. Because until my final year, my academics was also kind of messed up, because I was one of the lower range of students, like in terms of CGPA. I never really had a fancy CGPA, and it never really was of use anyway. But degree is useful, but not your CGPA. So if you're trying to put some efforts on getting a high CGPA, it's good. But more than that, try to build, put that effort in building skills for your career. Uh, so far, CGPA hasn't really done anything to me, because I still don't remember my CGPA. But again, so I was kind of on the lower end, maybe like in the bottom 10 of the class. So I was having no directions at all on which career to pick. So I was pretty much directionless in terms of technological direction. uh, and then it was totally unexpected that I encountered a course on Coursera on by Google Cloud, on Google Cloud. So I just started a course. I felt it interesting, and I thought maybe I'll do more, because it was like more suggestions came in. So I just watched, and it was kind of a new thing which I saw, and it was kind of interesting to me. So I thought maybe I'll just dig in deep. And the more I dug, the higher interest that got me. And so I thought maybe I'll just build a career on this, and I started it. So yeah, that was my motivation. There was not really any factors, but yeah, this is my motivation. Okay. Which course in Google Cloud did you start with after fundamentals, or what do you suggest? Okay. So I started with Google Cloud course itself. So that was the first mistake. Not, it can't be a mistake, because it's only because of that I chose this career. But uh, at that point of time, there was less amount of courses. That there was only like 15 courses entirely on uh, Google Cloud. So it was kind of a very niche, a very you know a course which was not flexibly available. So it was kind of very restricted in terms of access. So I started with that, and I was kind of confused at several stages. I was kind of confused, because I knew there is compute engine, there is VPC, but I don't know how cloud networking works or how virtualization works. So I had a big gap in knowing the fundamentals of cloud and knowing Google Cloud, because I started learning Google Cloud first. And then I decided to go back and learn the foundations of cloud. So I just started with learning foundations of cloud. I think there is a PDF on internet which you can search. It's around 900 pages. So I read the book about it. It's purely about cloud computing foundations. And then uh, and then I came back to learning Google Cloud, because at that point of time, I think there was the associate cloud engineering track and a professional cloud architect track on Coursera. So that was like, I think maybe around 10 to 15 courses around under two tracks, which I completed in the next 2 weeks, because I had a good, foundations. And at that point of time, I was, since it was a lockdown, I took, I utilized the most of the time which was available. And, I, in fact, every day I spend around 10 to 15 hours studying. So that was, I had a lot of time. So the things which I couldn't do in the entire 4 years, I did it in just 1 year. And that's only because I dedicated all the time to learning that. So like spending 10 to 15 hours a day to learn cloud was something which I did, which is very exhaustive. I had felt sick a lot of times. And but I would still not stop. So it was kind of, I was kind of dedicated towards learning it, and it has really paid off. So what I suggest is, start with the foundations of cloud computing. What is the basics? How does cloud work? How does the internet work? And then what is virtualization? What is containerization? How does storage work in cloud? How does networking work in cloud? What are the different types of networks? Standalone, shared, peering, network peering. How do you peer networks? How do you share the networks? And how do you use hybrid networks? Like, how do you connect the cloud with a data center? So these are the things that you need to learn at the foundation level. So start with that. Once you have that basic knowledge at a concrete level, start with learning the cloud provider. So Google Cloud here being, if you want to learn VPC, you first need to know what is cloud networking. So you need to know how a cloud network works. How is routing enabled. What are the different protocols, what are the ports, what are the uh, appropriate protocols used for particular use cases. So in once you learn those things, it will be easy for you to learn VPC or VPC peering or shared VPC, because it's the same concept. It is, those services are built on top of these concepts. So it will be very easy for you to learn the cloud computing foundations first, and then move to Google Cloud. So, yeah, next question was, how is Google Cloud different from, say, AWS or Azure? So, pretty general question. So, each cloud provider, will have several features by themselves. They will have different services. So, let's say Google Cloud's compute engine is different from AWS EC2, but it both offers the same thing. So it both of them offers the computing resource. So if you want to create a virtual machine on AWS, you are using EC2, Elastic Compute. So if you want to create a virtual machine on Google Cloud, you use GCE or Compute Engine. So these are the differences. One is on naming conventions, and the other one is on the features which they give. So let's say the number of networks you can build on a project, or create on a project, or let's say the uh, um, the speed of the traffic. How is traffic managed? How is the traffic optimized? How is auto scaling done? What is the latency? What is the computing power? So these differs from cloud to cloud. So Google Cloud has the best computing power available yet. So it's like the worst machine of Google Cloud. Not worst, but the least performing machine computing machine of Google Cloud is far better than the best performing computing resources from AWS and Azure. So these are some of the distinctions between cloud. So that's how it will be different. So how is the life of a cloud engineer? Good question. So currently, initially I worked as a cloud engineer before moving into DevOps. Uh, so cloud engineer's life, what a cloud engineer does is there are two different categories for a cloud engineer. Either you can be an operations engineer or you can be an infrastructure engineer. So what do I mean by that? So once you are an infrastructure engineer, what you do is, and again, there are a lot of similarities, as in lot of common things that they do. So it might sound like, both the roles are the same, but at a minor level, it's not. They're a little bit different. So once you're an infrastructure engineer, what happens is you create infrastructure for each of these applications to be hosted. So you will be creating like these compute instances or any managed services like App Engine, Cloud Functions, and you use languages or tools like Terraform, Pulumi, etc. to build those infrastructure where you can deploy the application. So cloud operations engineer, what they do is they basically look on the operation side. So once you have the application uh, hosted, so how does it how can they keep it alive all the time? So like when a lot of people, let's say an example, the university website, when a lot of people during the results time, when a lot of people try to access it, it just crashes. How can they reduce that, or how can they avoid crashing of that application or website? So this is what a cloud operations engineer think about. So how to make the applications available all the time, how to make it up and running, how to tackle all the challenges. So that's what a cloud operations engineer does. So again, based on the life, it depends on companies, their work culture, and then, but on work perspective, uh, this is what they do. And we just gather the requirements of the clients, how they want it to be, and then based out of that, we follow the best practices. What are the things that we can do, what are the ways we can automate? These are the things that we think about, and then do the build whatever they're asking for. So that's how pretty much the life of a cloud engineer is in terms of work. So what is the first step that you suggest for a beginner to enter cloud computing? Yeah, I think I've answered to this. It's the same. Start with learning the foundations of cloud computing. Before moving into a specific cloud provider, start with the foundations of cloud computing. And again, that doesn't mean you have to stop learning, a cloud provider and then go to learn the basics. You can do it parallelly, which will be much more efficient and helpful, because when you're learning cloud VPC, for example, you're learning, let's say you're learning networking, uh, how networking works in cloud in parallel. So you will be able to correlate how the aspects are coming in, how these are implemented on Google Cloud, or AWS or Azure, when you're trying to learn about it. So in that way, you will be able to map these two different things together, and it will stay on your mind for the long term. So that's also an easy way to learn things faster. So for roadmap on cloud, visit my Medium. I have laid out a brief roadmap about starting a career in cloud computing. So you can start with that. I have broken down the topics that you need to learn in as a basic thing about cloud computing. So network, storage, security, access, everything. So start learning those. You can visit my Medium page, and there I have the entire roadmap laid out. So you can start with that. So can you suggest the roadmap to cloud computing? Just as I told you, you can visit my Medium page, pilotudesh.medium.com. So there I have written down the roadmap to start a career in cloud computing. How does recruitment in such companies happen? So recruitment again, previously it was not as flexible, or not as demanding as it was before, because back then, 2 years back or 1 year back, by the time I graduated, I was getting calls from companies. I didn't really apply. I was getting calls from companies because I had already kind of tried to establish my skill sets in this domain. So I was kind of pretty much known to a few people, and who were working on cloud. So I was able to showcase myself and my skills, which brought those calls towards me. And currently the trend has been on an uprise, and the demand for cloud engineers and DevOps engineers are increasing day by day, because there are a lot of work to do, and there are not much experts who can do that work. So it'll be really currently a lot of companies are looking for engineers, or graduates who knows how these things work, so that they can hire them. So first step is start using LinkedIn. Showcase your skills, whatever skills you have, showcase it, and try to find people who are recruiting, or who are working on cloud companies. Ask them, interact with them. The more cloud engineers you interact with, the more exposure you will get in terms of how things work in the industry. And then you will be able to collect those information what you have heard from them. Once you consolidate it, you will have a really good uh, you know insight on what you should do, and based out of those information you can create a plan on how you want to take it forward. And that's how you can clearly build a career in cloud computing. Currently it's far easy than how it was before when I was graduating, because back then the demand for cloud engineers was high, but not as high as it is now. So yeah, how much does cloud engineers earn? Okay, so I am earning pretty much very well. I can't really enclose that information, but equivalent to a Google engineer, I can say that. Uh, again, cloud engineers, again, the pay scale depends. It varies from companies to company. Again, if you go for a enterprise, a large scale company, the chance would be you'll be getting a lower pay. And if you're working on a startup, you might be getting a higher pay. So it basically depends on the financial stability of the company and how things are. If I like doing networking and virtualization locally, is it cloud for me? So that's not cloud exactly, because that there you are using your resources. So that's something you're doing locally. That means that's the traditional way of doing things. So if you see, or if you think about data centers, now what they do is they had all these things. So they had to buy these routers, or it's basically on premises. Yes, it's basically on premises. Data centers, whatever they do on data centers is what you would be doing if you're doing it locally. So virtualization, they had to buy all those resources, physical hardwares. They had to manage it. So to eliminate those costs, because that's a capital expenditure which they need when before starting a company. So they need that money before starting a company, and they have to buy the land. They have to build their data center. They have to buy these resources. There's a time delay, and they have to hire people to manage those things, and it's a huge cost. So to avoid these costs, they are moving to cloud, where people where cloud providers are providing these resources, and the cloud providers themselves will manage these. So that's how cloud works. So it's basically on-prem, not exactly cloud. But if you do these same things on remotely on a different machine using your machine, that is cloud. So it's like if I do some operations on your computer by sitting here using my own laptop, then that is cloud. Thank you, Milan, for sharing those links. Yes, sure. Okay, how good is getting certified in Docker or related fields? Okay, interesting question. So getting certified is not should not be your first intention. Certifications are like cherry on top of a cake. So that cake should be your skill sets. You know, anybody will buy a cake, or anybody will buy a cake with cherries on it, but nobody will buy cherries alone. So that's the kind of mindset you need to apply when you think about certifications. So what you need to focus on is building skills. Certifications are good in finding opportunities. So it may or may not land you some interviews, but that doesn't really guarantee that you will get a job for sure. So you need to focus on your skill sets, build you know build your skills than going for a certification. Somebody who has 5 certifications and no skills is very worse. Somebody who has like good skills on two tools and not having certificate. I wouldn't recommend not having certificate, but let's say having 2 certifications and having good skills on 2 different tools is better, always better, and has more chance to be hired than somebody who doesn't have a skill and has 5 certifications. So that's something which everybody should have in mind when you think about certifications. So how good is it in terms of opportunities, getting opportunities? If there are any, it will be good, but uh, that doesn't guarantee that you will get any opportunities. So whether it be for Docker or Red Hat or Kubernetes is very demanding. Yes, anything. So going for certification should not be your intention. It's good in a way, uh, but it should not be your intention. If one is already practicing Docker, it's an added benefit. Yes, it is. So it's like, about Docker, I think having a simple Docker certification doesn't really help much, because when it comes to the industry, it's not really just about Docker. So there are a lot of other containers also which is used, and Kubernetes, has removed some support towards Docker. So it's kind of Docker is just one thing. So having a certification, I don't think that makes much difference. But yes, a Red Hat, is somewhat a good platform for certifications. Again, knowledge is the first thing. How are you consistent to do a lot of certifications along with studies? Okay. So the first thing is the certifications are kind of, I was not prepared, or I was not determined to get certifications. I just, took it as I was going through my work. So most of the certifications, I think the last I did 8 certifications in less than 30 days, but I had been preparing for the last 4 months uh, for these certifications. So a huge factor, a huge contributing factor was my work experience. Because since I was working on these tools on a daily basis, I knew what use cases that will be used for, how it works, and I kind of knew what it would be. So that's how it helped me in answering those questions in the exam. So I didn't really have to study it. It was more kind of a learning process for me. And I think there you have to see these two words in different way: learn and study. So things that you study, you can forget, you may forget, and you mostly would forget. But things that you learn, you will never forget. For example, learning to drive, learning to walk, learning to run, you can only learn those, and that stays with you forever. But you can't study to drive, because you can only learn to drive. It's once you start to learn, once you learn driving, you won't forget it. At any point of time, you will be able to do it, whether you mess up or not, but you will still know how you can drive. But it's not the same thing with studies. You when you study a paragraph, or when you study an article, or some answer to a question, you may forget. But when you learn the concept behind it, you will not forget it. So I was kind of applying the learning methods over everything. I never really studied, because I would forget that, and that would be of no demand after some time. So learning those concepts was the most important thing, and that was what I did. Any other questions? Is Linux important? Good question. Linux is the most important thing. The biggest, the most, the highest important thing is Linux. Cloud is based out of Linux. Cloud is built based on Linux. So if you don't know Linux, you don't know anything. So Linux, DevOps, whatever it is, the cloud, DevOps, whatever it is, learn Linux first. So how do you do virtualization? That's same as virtualizing a Linux machine, because mostly you're dealing with, or when you run commands, you're mostly dealing with Linux. So Linux is everything on cloud.
So I hope there are no more. Okay, there came one more question. Are you happy with cloud?
Of course, maybe you can see my happiness in my face, and that's the result of choosing cloud computing. So it 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 changed my life in a totally different way. So I can say, I was kind of traveling on a bus. I encountered Google Cloud, and suddenly the bus became a rocket. So that was the boost I got in my career, that made my life better in a whole different aspect. So that's currently I was invited to Google Cloud's main flagship event, Cloud Next, as a speaker on their roundtable conference, and that happened because of Google Cloud. I have a lot of big connections with a lot of highly reputed people around the world, and that happened because of Google Cloud. I still, I am able to help a lot of people land their job because I know something about Google Cloud, which I'm able to share. That's because of Google Cloud. Today, I'm here to help you out. Today I'm able to talk to you about Google Cloud because I chose cloud. So everything that you're witnessing is only because I chose to learn Google Cloud.
Well, I have a little question.
Sure.
So, do you believe in like manifest? For example, I know the reason behind the cloud pilot. You have spoken about it in a couple of interviews, etc. But again, a lot of our attendees right now might not know about it. But still, it's a very curious thing to think. So, and this, I know this isn't a very recent thing. You had this cloud pilot name tagged onto your Instagram and your Medium everywhere. So, do you really believe in manifesting? And would you like to share something about that?
Yeah, sure. So I never really, had this word, the cloud pilot, until like October 2020, because that's when I thought about creating content. Because I went through a very hard way, all those 3 months. I think from June to October in 2020, those 3 months I still remember how much struggle I had to take. I compromised a lot of things which you should not do. I compromised my personal time, my family time, interaction with my family. I would not talk to people. I was kind of uh, on a whole different mental state, and just because I was so kind of focused towards learning that. And that's something which you should never do. Always spend time with your family, and be happy all the time. I had a lot of mental breakdowns. I used to have mental breakdowns every day. So those 3 months, I struggled a lot. And it's after that, I came to a point where I realized that I struggled so much already, and I don't want any others to struggle like I did. So that's why I thought I'll create some content, share it with others. So YouTube was the best platform. So I thought, I need to build a brand on this, and to help everyone get their job in tech, not just cloud. If I can't help somebody to land if I can't mentor them, land a job in a different domain, I will at least bring some expert from that domain to help them give those insight to build a career in tech. So I wanted to build a brand around it, and I was thinking about name, what I should do. So one of the main thing is, I'm so addicted, and I'm so dedicated towards becoming a pilot. So that's something I have as a goal on my long term. So back then, I had no background, or no backup to become a pilot. So I always had that aim in my mind, to become a pilot, which currently I have everything. I currently have everything with me to become a pilot. I'm still trying to establish uh, my brand as a cloud pilot to help more people before I become a real pilot. So currently, it's always cloud, either cloud computing or the real clouds. So even if you look at my WhatsApp, the status says in and above the clouds. So that's what I like to do. And yeah, that's how the name cloud pilot came in, because I want to be a pilot. So I always need to remember that I want to become a pilot, and at the same time, what I'm doing is on cloud. So yeah, that's how the cloud pilot came up.
That was very interesting. fun question here. Are you a gamer?
Yeah, I am. Maybe I think that question came in because I had a gaming chair. So yes, I do play games. I play Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm a die-hard fan of that, and since I know flying, I do that. I simulate on my end. So it's not just a game. It's more of a simulator where you do the real stuff. Um, so I do that, and I also play other games. I play NBA. I play FIFA on my mobile. I play a lot of games. WWE on my laptop. A lot of games. I am a gamer. Not a professional or a pro, but still maybe a rookie.
All right. With that being said, we have almost reached the end of our session, and I once again take a moment to thank you. Thank you so much, Udesh, for your time and efforts to join our tonight's session. Indeed, it was very interactive and engaging. You can see that all that love in the chat. One more thing to note for our attendees here. So this was part of our Cloud Hash 30, which is a collaboration event by three GDSCs, that is GDSC MITS, GDSC TOCH, and GDSC MEC. Monday onwards, we'll have our regular sessions just to help you guys with your GDSC task, which you might be probably receiving it in your emails. Some of you might have queries and a lot of doubts because this is very new to a lot of you. And that's exactly the reason why we wanted to bring a person like Udesh for our very first session. And it was. Of course, it was a good session, and yeah. So I hope everybody enjoyed our session. So that being said, I will wind up now.
Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm always very happy, most happy to help you, anybody.
Yeah, you can just see the chat, and I'm sure you are gonna receive this on your LinkedIn and just Instagram because, like, whenever I mention your name, a lot of, MITS, you are our alumni, but an alumni whom everybody knows, and that's not something happens always. So. Let's also hope for an offline session where we actually get to meet in person, all of them. We are also thinking about that. So, yeah.
I'll be happy to meet everyone. So let's see.
So, yeah, all of you could lead the session.